Let's see. What does this say? Facebook made a change. Facebook made a change on February 16th that limits some pages from going live. They recommend trying again in a few weeks. In the meantime, you can stream to your profile or other platforms. We've asked Facebook to consider changing this policy. And that's just for the 93.5 The Tap in Chippewa Falls. Okay, fine. Remove the tap. We'll have to come back to that one. That's weird. But anyway, it says here we're live on everybody else. So good morning. A little technical difficulties there, but now we're around on this Monday, March 25th for Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Coming up, we've got Selena Heller joining us to talk about stories that she's working on for this week for our website and for social media. Our friends from Motherhood for Good will be here to talk about the dangers to public education posed by far-right conservatives trying to take over local school boards. We'll talk about some of the unusual things Eric Hovde said the last time he ran for Senate that we'd all forgotten all about, but that stuff is coming back up again. We'll talk about how the Badger men's basketball team and the Badger women's hockey team did in their respective NCAA tournaments. And we'll talk about the snow with meteorologist Brittany Merlot. We'll give you snowfall totals from up north here, all right around a foot of snow. And Civic Media News Director Terry Bell with 3 things you need to know to start the week, all coming up 4 minutes from now at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network. See you soon. Tuesday morning on Up North News Radio, signs of progress, maybe, to fix immigration rules for the many migrants who keep Tuesday morning on Up North News Radio. Tuesday morning on Up North News Radio, signs of progress, maybe, to fix immigration rules for the many migrants who keep Wisconsin dairy farms operating. Tuesday morning on Up North News Radio, signs of progress.
Partisan from Civic Media. This is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Monday morning, March 25th, 2024. It's another beautiful but really snowy day to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network. And if you're joining us instead on the app or social media or by podcast, we appreciate you being here as well. Always start out with a question for you. What'd you get? What do you got for snow up there? Did you take it in stride, or are you just downright depressed at seeing all of it? Out our window here on the lake, about 10 inches. Similar totals in Eau Claire and Menominee, reporting around 10 inches. But it basically was the Highway 29 corridor and a little ways north that got the brunt of it. In fact, our friend in Tigerton is near the top of the charts. Tigerton got 12 inches, Burnhamwood 13 inches. Wausau reporting 11 inches of snow, 8 inches reported in Rhinelander, in Crandon, and in Hayward. And then obviously less south of 29, and then some places are getting a rain-snow mix. We're going to move into a rain-snow mix throughout the day here, and we'll talk to meteorologist Brittany Merlot in just a little bit about that. So that was kind of our excitement for the past 24 hours, was watching this stuff just pile up. If you want to let us know what has fallen by you, you can call us or text us. Just text us your snowfall totals at 855-75-CIVIC. Or if you're watching on Facebook, then you can put it in the comment section and we will see it there. What else are we talking about besides the weather here? Besides weather and sports, because we'll have sports as well. The Badger men's basketball team, the Marquette men's basketball team, one of those teams is still alive in the tournament. The Badger women's hockey team competed in the national finals yesterday for the NCAA championship. In the news, Republican Senate candidate Eric Hovde didn't win the last time he ran for Senate in 2012. And as we're looking back at some of the comments he made back then, we're starting to understand why. So we'll review some of the things that some of the positions he has taken as he moves into a second attempt to run for office. And by the way, one of the things he said back during his first attempt to run for office is that if he didn't win, he'd never do it again. I mean, just shades of Ron Johnson all over again, you know. And it's also Motherhood Monday. Our friends from Motherhood for Good will be here and share their perspective on the danger to public education posed by far-right conservatives that are trying to take over local school boards. Up North News reporter Selena Heller will join us as well to talk about stories that she's been working on. Civic Media News Director Terry Bell has 3 things you need to know to start the week. And again, the aforementioned Brittany Merlot will tell us more about the weather as we move into either Easter week or spring break week, whatever you want to call it. Easter candy is on people's minds. That's one of the stories on our Up North News daily newsletter. In today's edition, you can sign up for the newsletter over at our website, upnorthnewswi.com. So the temperatures around the state right now reflect that line that we're approaching where the snow is going to turn into rain in places. Here in Chippewa Falls, it's 34 degrees right now. Hayward, 31. Park Falls, 31. Wausau's at 32 right now. Green Bay, 37. It's also 37 in La Crosse. Wisconsin Rapids has 33. Oshkosh, 37. Madison's at 39 degrees. And it's 36 degrees right now in Waukesha, where we find the one, the only Greg Bach, coming off another weekend of working too damn hard. Mr. Bach, how are you?
I'm well.
And do you have snow down there?
What was that?
Do you have snow? What did you get down there?
Okay, so in Waukesha we got quite a bit. I'd probably say 4 or 5 inches.
Okay.
In Kenosha we got next to nothing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I woke up and there was like a little on the car, some on the lawn, and by Sunday anything that did fall, gone.
Yeah. Well, it was like that for us Friday morning. We woke up to, what was it, a couple of inches, and by the end of the day, it was gone. But
Yeah.
that just meant it all could start up again this weekend, which is why we've got the 10 inches now. But it too is going to go quickly. So I have a new term for snow when it falls this late in the year.
Yeah.
Time to release rain. It's just rain in a different form. It's just time released like some medications are. And that rain will, so it's about, they said about 2.5 inches of liquid equivalent. So
Yeah.
basically it's 2.5 inches of rain, but we're not going to get it all at once. We're just going to let it seep in there. That's what spring will do.
You're just incapable of accepting snow.
Oh no, I'm very glass half full about this. It's spring.
It's glass half full of rainwater.
Yes, it is. And that's fine. It's a snow cone that's going to melt very quickly. I can't imagine you watched much of the NCAA men's basketball tournament over the weekend.
I
given how
watched.
much you do.
You'll be very proud of me, Pat.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I watched nothing.
I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, I was working all weekend, and then birthday party for my niece on Sunday. She's amazing, little girl, 6 years old, awesome.
Aww.
But then yesterday I saw Brett Goldstein perform. Brett Goldstein plays Roy Kent, and my wife, who got me the tickets for Christmas, transferred the tickets via the app that we got the tickets from, and I looked at the tickets, and I'm like, doors are at 3:00. What is this about? It was a 4 p.m. show.
A 4 p.m. show.
It was a 4 p.m. show, Pat, and it was amazing.
Somebody didn't have to stay up too late.
Like this.
I'm so happy for you. What a nice gift.
I got out of the show and it was light out. I got home and it wasn't late.
Mm-hmm. See, is it? Well, welcome to my side. Welcome to the dark side, where we start to go to dinner now at 4:30 in the afternoon. we first were like, what is wrong with us? And now we're like, hey, we like this. We're done nice and early.
Exactly.
Well, for people that did watch the tournament, I mean, a lot of people were picking against the Badgers in that 12-5 matchup with James Madison. And we saw why. It was just not, I mean, what I watched was, it's almost as if there was a manhole cover on top of the basket. That everything the Badgers shot at it just would not go in. It was
guys. So
I know. So they were one and done. Marquette does move on. Details in a bit here, but I have to tell you about this one first. My favorite thing on Twitter about this was Yale had a big upset over Auburn, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Big upset. And there's a Twitter handle. The Twitter handle is @YaleMBB. And so everybody was tweeting something about Yale MBB and what a big game it was. Well, then Yale MBB finally put out a post that said, our notifications are blowing up with basketball tweets, but we are the Yale Molecular Biophysics and Biochemistry account. You might want to tag @YaleMBasketball instead.
Not anymore.
But they took it in good stride and then put up a few other things about it. But I just really enjoyed that. Do you know how much money they've estimated gets bet legally on the NCAAs? On this
$4 billion.
Almost 2.7, almost $3 billion. And everybody's got blown up because so many people picked Kentucky to go deep. They were the one we talked about Friday, the 14 that lost to a 3, you know? So I'm really glad I don't put money down on that. Me
too.
I know. So we'll follow Marquette, obviously cheer for them. But for me, sports-wise, you know what this is. This is opening week for baseball. The Brewers open the season on Thursday at the New York Mets, and then they'll be here next week, Tuesday, for the home opener. But there is one other really important sports note. I think a lot of people may not have caught this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read this breaking sports news, courtesy of former President Donald Trump on his tiny social media account. It is my great honor to be at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach awards night to receive both the club championship trophy and the senior club championship trophy. I won both. A large, talented membership, a great, difficult course made the play very exciting. A large and distinguished group will be there tonight. Very exciting. Thank you. I mean, this is so North Korea. Oh, dear leader, you sank a hole in one on every hole. How did you do that?
It reminds me, this is a very deep cut, but from the movie Mr. Mom, when they go to the boss's house and there's like a weird obstacle course and he's like, yeah, it's gonna be fun. You're like, well, you're not gonna win. The boss always wins. And he's like, no, I'm gonna win. And at the very last second, he tanks it for his wife because he doesn't want her to like get in trouble. I'm like, And the thing is, Martin was like, I won. Did I win? I won. Oh my gosh, I won.
I'm so surprised. There was a video clip about a week ago that somebody took from afar of Trump playing golf with like 3 other guys. And, these are all older men, playing golf. And have some decency, fellas. But no, Trump sank a putt and they were just like cheering. They were jumping up and down for him. Like, he did it. He did it. It was so surreal to look at this. It was. I know.
Don't like it, Pat. Make it go away.
Well, that's big sports news. You gotta share some of that. So let me get to some of the others. The Bucks beat Oklahoma City last night, 118-93. The Bucks will be home tomorrow night to take on the LA Lakers. You can hear the Bucks-Lakers game tomorrow on Oshkosh Air Support, News from the Center and Richland Center, Lake Air and Amory, WRGN and Racine, and locally grown radio in Wisconsin Rapids. So for the men, the Badgers lost to James Madison on Friday, 72-61. I could not believe how many turnovers there were, along with the missed extra shots. So that wraps up the season for the Badger men. The Marquette men beat 10-seed Colorado 81-77 yesterday. So now in their 3rd season under Coach Shaka Smart, the Golden Eagles, a number 2 seed, have reached the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2013. And so Marquette will next play later this week against 11 seed North Carolina State. The Badger women's hockey team was in the national championship game yesterday. The Badger women, 2nd ranked in the country. They had beaten the top-ranked Ohio State women twice in the past 3 weeks or so, but the Badgers, the defending national champions, couldn't make it happen one more time, falling to Ohio State yesterday by a score of 1-0. And the Badger men's hockey team, NCAA tournament pairings were announced. The Badger men's hockey team will play Quinnipiac in their first round game of the NCAA tournament coming up this Friday afternoon at 4:30 in Providence, Rhode Island. So a lot of sports going on this time of year where the winter sports and the spring sports all intersect here. So we'll follow other details throughout the week, but I'm just so happy it's going to be baseball time again. All right, Eric Hovde, he ran for governor last in 2012, probably hoping you forgot some of the stuff that he said, but the internet's forever. So wait till you hear what he said about farmers and should there be a fat tax? He apparently thinks so. That's all coming up live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. This is Up North News Radio.
Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and night.
The Turtles had the number 1 song this day in 1967 with Happy Together. More musical memories in today's history lesson coming up in about a half hour. In today's daily newsletter from Up North News, Christina Laurie put in, as I mentioned earlier, a story about some of Wisconsin's favorite Easter candies, and also my article on how the Wisconsin Supreme Court's new progressive majority is reforming how the court does business after 15 years of conservative control. On our website, You'll find an article about how a group of basically 80% of House Republicans, including some from Wisconsin, released a new budget proposal last week that calls for raising the Social Security retirement age, restructuring Medicare, severely restricting reproductive freedoms, and more. So again, you can catch that article on our website. And on social media, the Affordable Care Act had its 14th birthday over the weekend. Find out how the Affordable Care Act has been improving lives throughout that 14-year run. And Wisconsin brewers are looking for more locally sourced ingredients for their craft beers. Look for that on our Facebook feed. Just look for Up North News WI as you're searching around Facebook to find our page. All right, now Eric Hovde is now a California-based businessman, owner of a bank. He has Wisconsin roots. His family has Wisconsin roots, but a lot of what he does now is out on the West Coast. And much like Tim Michaels from the East Coast, here's somebody with a lot of money saying, I will just come in, remind people that I have spent time in Wisconsin and that I'm the better choice. It didn't work out so well for Tim Michaels, and Eric Hovde's had a bit of a go at it lately with a few missteps, coming out of the chute with his senatorial campaign. One of the most recent ones was on Thursday or Friday. He posted something on Facebook, cheering for the Badgers after he had picked Purdue, by the way, to win the whole thing. But he's in his Badger sweatshirt, which wasn't at all just purchased 5 minutes before, because it didn't still have one of the tags on the shoulder of it. Oh, yes, it did. So Eric's not having the best of times here. But that's even just what's happening now. If you go back to some of the things he said when he ran the first time, you might understand why he fell short. It was a bruising primary. There were 4 candidates in it, Jeff Fitzgerald, I believe, Mark Newman, former Governor Tommy Thompson, and Eric Hovde. And Thompson prevailed. But I was looking back yesterday at an Eric Hovde interview with Wisconsin Eye back on July 31st of 2012. And the way the Wisconsin Eye website is set up, I wasn't able to grab audio off it today or over the weekend. I'll grab that today and play it back at some point for you here, play some clips of it. But I want to tell you about, just some of the things that he did mention in there. Things like overweight people should be charged more for their health insurance. Younger people should have to work well past 65, and that farmers aren't working as hard as in the past. He talked about how the workers of days gone by, farmers included, worked harder and faced more hazards back then. His quote was, "We don't engage in hard labor like we did. We don't have as many accidents on the job. Now we're involved in some type of white-collar profession or even professions that are involved in manual labor. It's much safer, much more protective. Think of farming. Look at the old physical toll that it would take on the body. Now you're largely driving around a tractor." The farmers today who are doing more than largely driving around a tractor might have a thing to say about that. But on the subject of health care, Hovde again reiterated his view back in 2012 that the Affordable Care Act needs to be, quote, completely repealed without providing much of a plan except to give people support for premiums on the private market, which is a large part of what the Affordable Care Act does. But he also suggested overweight people should pay more for health insurance. His quote said, "Look, we have an explosion of type 2 diabetes right now. Obesity is off the charts. We're removing people from being responsible for their own health. If they all started to realize that they're going to pay more for their health care by, consuming massive amounts of soda every day or fatty foods or not exercising, maybe they would change their behavior patterns." So Eric Hovde wants to change your behavior pattern by jacking up your health insurance costs. The Daily Beast ran an article about these quotes and talked to Melanie Jay, an associate professor of medicine at New York University. And she said, Hovde's view shows, quote, either you're not understanding or just discriminating against people who have a chronic disease like obesity. It's assuming that obesity is some sort of moral failing that people need to be punished for, which is not true. It's a pretty awful and dangerous thing to say. Because, sometimes it's bad choices. Sometimes it's genetic. Sometimes it's the effect of prescription medications. It is also the work that you do. But in Hovde's view, apparently you stand on the scale before you pay your health insurance bill. And one more note from that interview, Wisconsin Eye reporter Stephen Walters asked Hovde near the end of the interview about his political future. Again, in that 2012 Republican primary, Walters asks, "You're a first-time candidate. If you don't win the primary, do you plan to run for public office again?" "No." Hovde replied, "No. I'm doing this for a very simple reason. I know that my economic skills and my background is something that is desperately needed in the United States Senate right now. I don't plan to spend the rest of my life in politics." Hovde, of course, did go on to lose the primary. He's been a steady financial supporter to Republican candidates ever since. And so I sense some of those audio clips as they come up are going to get a little airplay, and he's going to be asked about them, which ones he still agrees with and which ones that he doesn't. But you contrast what he is saying about, say, farmers not working as hard as back in the day. And then you've got Senator Tammy Baldwin. I interviewed her yesterday for an interview we'll play back in a couple of days here. And that is because she's at the start of a 5-day statewide tour to highlight some issues in communities all across Wisconsin. It starts later today in Superior, and she's just working her way top to bottom, left to right. She'll be in Superior. Among her other stops, 19 counties: Rhinelander, Wausau, Waupaca, Fort Atkinson, New Glarus, Richland Center, Wisconsin Dells, and a few other communities along the way. And she'll be talking as well about the way that a politician brings home the bacon to farmers and rural areas and the rest of the state, because you'll recall that the federal budget, the thing that always threatened a government shutdown, a deal finally got done once and for all this past week. And in there again were many more examples of Tammy Baldwin bringing home the bacon and making sure that our tax dollars are invested back here in Wisconsin. We're going to contrast that after the next break here to what Derek Van Orden would do with Wisconsin farmers and their international markets. And again, when we play that coming up in a bit, much like Hovde's comments, a bit of a head scratcher. Again, you'd like to have people do a bit more homework before they shoot off their mouths about, Wisconsin farmers and markets and workplace and things like that. But we'll have that. And also, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos was on the Sunday morning TV shows, and he was asked about former Supreme Court Justice Michael Gableman. He did not have kind things to say about the person that he appointed to, quote unquote, investigate the 2020 elections and look for some irregularities. Of course, Gableman didn't find any. It was a bumbling and very expensive investigation to the taxpayers. He and Vos had a falling out because Gableman and many others who were willing to do pretty much anything for Donald Trump found in Robin Vos somebody who would do a lot for Donald Trump, but not cross over a certain ethical line, like, trying to overturn an election. So we'll get that comment and more ahead on this Monday morning on Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wissota across the Civic Media Radio Network.
For all my life.
said, the 60s and 70s, they were a weird time. When else are you going to get lyrics like Jeremiah was a bullfrog? But we sang it that back then. We sang it, we sang it loud and proud. It was a great song. The guy that wrote the song was born on this day. We'll tell you more in our history lesson in just a bit. I mean, I'm a Three Dog Night guy, Greg. I don't know, between the blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah.
You're a Three Dog Night guy. I'm a King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard guy. So, hey, we all live in a world together. We exist and be happy with our music. Yes,
exactly. So we all got our thing here. 6:34 now, and on Up North News Radio. Let's pick up where we left off, talking about farmers. We talked about what Eric Hovde had to say about farmers not working so hard as farmers had to work back in the day. And Tammy Baldwin, meanwhile, is taking a tour of farms and small businesses around Wisconsin this week to celebrate how hard they're working and the things that they're doing. I haven't had a chance yet to play for you this clip from Congressman Derek Van Orden and something that he said last week during a committee hearing about exporting more U.S. food to foreign countries. We don't hear about that as much as we used to. We used to talk all the time about sending grain to the Soviet Union and sending other foodstuffs around the world to countries in need. I guess over the years, a lot of that food assistance has been replaced with cash assistance, and then, farmers have other ways to get markets for their food. Well, there's a proposal out there that would increase the amount of commodities from U.S. farms and producers that would be shipped overseas to countries in need, countries that can't feed their whole population. China, for example. And after all, we're sending so much money over there in trade. Isn't it about time we made a little bit of that money back by, shipping some of our crops and commodities out there? But Congressman Derek Van Orden drew a rather interesting parallel when he was questioning a witness, giving testimony in committee about the proposal. Give a listen to what Derek Van Orden thinks of farmers having a great big market for their crops.
Do you think the United States of America should be feeding Nazi Germany in 1938 before their invasion of Poland in 1939? Should we be providing them with food and aid?
Well, and bringing it up to, you want to talk about China today on that, or
well,
you want to talk about Nazi
I want
Germany?
to highlight the fact that right now we are essentially feeding Nazi Germany in 1938. And do you think that that's an appropriate use of American resources? Would it have been then, and is it now with China? Because that's where we're at with China. We're in 1938.
I want to sell.
They haven't invaded Poland yet, but it's on the horizon.
I want to sell as much as we can. We know that the demand for protein around the world is continuing to grow at a rapid rate, whether it's India, China, or throughout the developing world in Africa and the Middle East.
I understand my time has expired. I just want to tell you that if I had the choice to sell food and give aid to Hitler in 1938, I would not have done so.
So there you go. Derek Van Orden does not want Wisconsin farmers to be able to have a market in China, or at least an expanding market in China to ship their food. Unfortunately, or sadly for Wisconsin farmers, they're already used to hearing this kind of thing, because during the Trump administration, you'll recall that there were several trade spats, if not a trade war with China. And once again, Wisconsin farmers lost a big market for their soybeans. And that when China did need soybeans and other commodities, they could go to Brazil and they could go to other places that had crops that were growing, and farmers there who needed markets. When it comes to Wisconsin ag exports, China is Wisconsin's third largest international customer. Over $300 million in sales last year, largely soybeans and pork. And yet Van Orden, who sits on the House Agriculture Committee, is saying that maybe that marketplace shouldn't exist because, to hear him say it, China's about to invade Poland or something along those lines. They're not direct parallels, and it's rather interesting and troubling that that's what he thinks of international markets in this day and age for Wisconsin's ag producers. A little closer to home, as I mentioned, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos was on one of the Sunday shows, Capital City Sunday, I believe, and he was asked by reporter Matt Smith whether he regretted hiring Justice Michael Gableman to, quote-unquote, investigate the 2020 election results in Wisconsin, and Robin Voss did not hold back.
A lot of their concern circles back to the Gableman report. You hired former Justice Michael Gableman to review the 2020 election. Do you regret that hire now?
Of course I do. I mean, I said it 6 months ago that it was the biggest mistake since I became Speaker. I thought that someone who had been elected to the state Supreme Court would have had legitimacy to be able to look at people and say, yes, here are some areas where there are problems. And there certainly were issues in the 2020 election. Many of those were fixed in the 2022 election. And I think even more are addressed for 2024. But Mike Gableman is probably the single biggest embarrassment that I have ever had. I hope eventually he gets disbarred. He should not be an attorney. Anybody who thinks about hiring him, call me, because I will tell you what awful decision that I made to hire Mike Gableman.
So tell us how you really feel, Mr. Speaker. By the way, apologies to Matt Smith. That's from WISN TV and their Upfront program. But he says, anybody thinking of hiring Gableman, call me and I'll fill you in. To which I would say, Speaker Voss, before you hired him for the investigation, you could have called me. You could have called a whole lot of people who watched Michael Gableman as a Supreme Court justice, who saw him as a candidate for Supreme Court, who ran a ridiculously racist campaign against then sitting Justice Louis Butler. The man should have been nowhere near a Supreme Court seat, much less serving in it, much less, quote unquote, investigating an election. No wonder you feel embarrassed by him. You are at least right to acknowledge, yeah, that was a bad move. On the subject of bad moves, and by the way, for folks going, wait, isn't Kristen Lyerly normally here Mondays at 6:30? Yeah, normally she is. She's traveling today. She's going to be joining us tomorrow at 6:30, and she's going to talk a bit about how tomorrow the U.S. Supreme Court is going to be taking up the prospect of perhaps banning medication abortion. Mifepristone is what we're talking about. And given the makeup of this current Supreme Court, it is quite possible that there's going to be another assault on women's reproductive health care rights. So Kristen will have that for us tomorrow. But getting back to news here today, on Friday, Sacred Heart Hospital in Eau Claire and St. Joseph's Hospital in Chippewa Falls closed. The hospitals just closed. They're done. HSHS, this Illinois-based healthcare company, shut them down along with several clinics and put some 1,400 people out of work in the area. It's been a sad few days here as people, cleaned out their spaces and left, and now those healthcare facilities are no more. And yet HSHS managed to, on Friday, put up a Facebook post about the importance of hospitals in our communities. The Facebook post said, they were taking part in the Wisconsin Hospital Association, the WHA, taking part in their advocacy day at the Capitol. So there was a whole bunch of hospital folks, lobbyists and others who were wandering around the Capitol, including apparently people from HSHS. And they put up this social media post. WHA's advocacy day is an important opportunity to share the commitment of our HSHS hospitals to serve the healthcare needs of patients and communities in Wisconsin. We need to remind everyone how vital hospitals are to their communities, especially small, rural communities. That was posted without any irony whatsoever, or self-awareness, as the case may be, that they're saying we need to remind everyone how vital hospitals are, especially in small, rural communities. Needless to say, the post was taken down. It had been up for about an hour. But at that point, essentially, it was kind of the final twist of the knife by the HSHS folks to put that up there. And all I can hope for is that, along with 1,400 people losing their jobs, maybe the person who greenlighted that post became 1,401. If there's any justice out there whatsoever. Oh, let's see. What else have we got? Oh, Greg, look at the adventure I have just found here.
What? Choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Here's the adventure. It's called Google Signs You Out When You're in the Middle of Something.
Oh, that's been happening to people a lot lately.
It does. It's one of my favorite things. He said, oh, so sarcastically, where, yeah, just in the middle of something, they sign you out. You've got to go figure out what your password is. You sign back in. You tap dance with the person who's nice enough to, host the radio show along with you. And then you wait for Google to comply with your new password and say, oh, there you go. Oh, it is you. I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to doubt you.
Glad I could help.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Google. Appreciate that. Where was I? Oh, yeah. We were talking about the HSHS social media post here. And then we were going to, here's, should we get into Kate Middleton really quick here?
Sure. Yeah.
Because everybody was speculating for I think good reason about her health. Obviously people care about it, but also the rather clumsy way in which the royal family handled these things. So on Friday, the Princess of Wales puts out this lovely video, kind of emotional, talking about that it is in fact cancer that she's fighting and that she's about to start some chemotherapy, and asking for privacy and everything like that. And there were people out there going, you should all be ashamed of yourself. And I'm like, no, I don't. First off, it's the royal family. I wish them well, but they mean nothing to me, one way or another. But if you're in a public role, even if you're going through tough times, there's a lot of people who are going to be looking and filling the void with information if you don't. So I just wanted to acknowledge that they did put the video out. We still don't know what kind of cancer she's facing and all of that. We don't necessarily need to know, but I think sometimes people in public positions, they love all the positive stuff of it and forget that it does comes with its own responsibilities and negative side too. And you just have to play on a higher plane than the rest of us, I guess.
And walk a tighter rope.
Yeah, without a doubt. So again, we wish her the best on that. And then there's a national story here about Trump needing money today to post a $500 million bond in the business fraud case against him. He wants to appeal, the $500 million ruling that threatens to force him to sell off or close a lot of his businesses. And he, of course, is playing the victim and saying, oh, the courts are coming after me. They're coming after me for this and that and for election fraud and business fraud. I'm such a victim here. And I love that in an interview yesterday, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made the point. It's not about all these court cases attacking you. It's that you can't stop committing crimes, and all of these courts are all investigating you for all these different things. It's not any one thing. It's what you did to try to overturn the election. It's what you did to try to overturn the results in Georgia. It's what you did stealing top secret documents and taking them to Florida. It's the way that you committed business fraud. It's the way that you used hush money and reported it illegally to cover up an affair. That's just called accountability. The fact that these things are all happening after you leave office is not a coincidence, because you can't prosecute a sitting president. So these things are coming down now. But here's the suspicious thing. Somebody named Jeff Yass, I don't know who this person is, but said he's buying Trump's social media network, Truth Social, for $3 billion. Trump owns Truth Social, so that's a $3 billion cash infusion so that he can pay off that bond, perhaps. And you'll notice that Donald Trump has done a 180 on TikTok. Initially, he favored a ban of it, but now he doesn't. A stance which would preserve Jeff Yass's $30 billion stake in TikTok. As one person said on social media, if this happened in any other country, we'd refer to them as oligarchs. But here it's just another day in the life of following Donald Trump. Today's history lesson and musical memories coming up live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. This is Up North News Radio.
Straight shooting son of a gun.
It's one of those where you got to get it in one note. And you could from that very opening piano riff. Elton John is 77 today.
Lord.
We talked about that this weekend with people who went to see Bruce Springsteen. Who were a couple of the other? We talked about Mick Jagger. There was somebody else we talked about how the way that they can still have such a stage presence and still move from somebody you would not believe is in their late 70s, early 80s, and it really is just a case of use it or lose it. You know that they all know if they stop touring, if they stop performing, it's just right away they're gonna look like White Gooden at the end of Dodgeball, just sitting in that bed with a bucket of fried chicken. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I went to go see the Police reunion tour in 2007, and at one point I was like trying to calculate their age on stage. I was like, oh my god, these guys are like 170 years old between, and they were rocking so hard.
Oh yeah. Well, I was talking yesterday to my friend Jim Zahns, who is a videographer, and he shot the interview that I did yesterday with Senator Tammy Baldwin, and he was on. He shot some of the final Kiss concerts and met the guys backstage and talked about what it's like to meet guys in their early 80s in full makeup, all the chest hair hanging out there, but they're still playing up on stage, getting the show done. So good for them. Sarah Jessica Parker is 59 years old today. And what was her? Was it Freaks and Geeks? Was it Square Pegs? She had some
Square Pegs. It was Square Pegs.
Yep. And as a high school kid, and it's kind of odd, although she's the same age as me now. But time is undefeated. Look at this one, Gloria Steinem, the feminist and activist, 90 years old today. Happy birthday to her. This is the anniversary of the birth of Aretha Franklin. She was born this day in 1942. Now that was 82 years ago. She passed away in 2018 at the age of 76. On this day in the year 421, the Italian city of Venice was founded. And I can't do a good Woody Allen impression, but it never occurred to somebody in the crowd to go, excuse me, little problem here. Your city is full of water. But no, they said, hey, this is a great place for a city. Let's put it right here. And people still like to travel. It's not on my bucket list, Greg. I don't know about you.
Italy, I want to go to Italy, but
Italy, yes.
But my wife lived there for a year. She lived in Italy for a year, and I said, when we go someday, just you direct me, and we'll go.
It sounds like a wedding. Just tell me where to be.
I'll just put my tax date up in there on time. Yeah, I mean, I want to go to Italy, but I don't know. It's just lately it's been less and less. I want to go more to France and to New Zealand and Japan. That's another conversation.
I think Powerball is approaching $500 million, and
totally.
That other one is over $1 billion. So that could happen this week yet, Greg. I
mean, if I win the lottery, I'll just buy Greenland.
This is the anniversary of the birth of sports broadcasting legend Howard Cosell, born this day in 1918, passed away in 1995. And I bring it up just so I can play back one of my favorite Howard Cosell calls, because I watched him and listened to him do a lot of boxing matches, Monday Night Football, baseball, but it was this boxing call that will always stick with me.
Angie Dundee, Ali's trainer, right next to me is saying it. You may hear him. Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! The heavyweight champion is taking the mandatory 8 count, and Foreman is as poised as can be in a neutral corner. Down goes Frazier!
It was just...
Frazier!
It's just...
I don't want... here's the reason I don't watch, MMA fights and things today. Those boxing matches that Howard Cosell called with Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, in my mind, you're never going to top that. You're never going to top it. They were so good.
Yeah, I mean, they're not as I don't know. Even back then, you knew how legendary these fights were.
Mhm.
And nowadays, like, there's a UFC fight every weekend,
Yeah.
and who cares? I will say, when Frazier goes, that's what I've always thought is when Frazier goes down, you think when Ali hits him, like there's just like this bag of bricks that just goes down. He just started like, oh, I fell on my duff, and then he just stays on his duff.
Oh yeah, because the little birds were flying all around his head. Yeah. This is the anniversary of the birth of singer-songwriter Hoyt Axton.
You made up
he's
that
al-
name.
I know. He was an actor as well. Passed away in 1999. But among the songs that he wrote were "Joy to the World" that we heard earlier from Three Dog Night, "Ringo Starr" and the "No No" song. And here's another Three Dog Night jam.
Well, I never been to heaven, but I've been to Oklahoma.
He's Never Been to Spain, one of many songs written by Hoyt Axton. We've already played the Turtles, "Happy Together," number one this day in 1967. Here's one. America, the band America, their first single, "A Horse with No Name," went to number one on the charts this day in 1972.
You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name.
No, guys, sound more like Neil Young.
In the desert, you can't remember your name.
I think as I was working through the music notes for this week, I think later in the week we're going to get into songs with the worst lyrics ever. And there's a line in this one that qualifies for that. Canadian singer-songwriter Jeff Healey was born this day in 1966. This was his big hit.
What did I do? What did I say to turn your angel eyes my way?
That's Jeff Healey, born this day in 66, passed away in 2008 at the age of 41 from cancer. On the international calendar today is International Waffle Day, which is weird because it's called the International House of Pancakes. But I guess today the waffles get their turn. Thank you very much.
I thought it was International Just Can't Make a Decision Day. Hey,
Oh, I like that. Today is Lobster Newburg Day. I did not look up what exactly makes it. What makes it Newburg? I don't know. It's the International Day of Remembrance for the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, and it is Medal of Honor Day to remember all the recipients of the Medal of Honor, one of the highest awards offered here to Americans. And then Milwaukee's own Jim Lovell, the astronaut from both Apollo 8 and Apollo 13, he is 96 years old today. We'll maybe talk more about Jim Lovell a little bit later on in our next hour. We'll also visit with our friends from Motherhood for Good as they talk about the importance of school board elections and much more. This is Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Was close enough.
Ms. Merlot, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Stoked.
Stoked. Okay, here we go.
I'm gonna snow. Ah.
All right, good deal. You got anything that tops what I saw an hour ago, which was 12 in Tigerton, 13 in Burnhamwood?
Nope, same
Okay.
stuff.
All
Yeah.
righty. Okay.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Welcome back, 7:06 on this Monday morning, March 25th. Nice to have you along, live from Lake Wissota. We've got our Ride into Spring contest coming up in just a sec here, along with meteorologist Brittany Merlot. And we've got also coming up, our friends from Motherhood for Good are going to talk about the importance of next week's school board races. Before we get to Brittany and the snowfall, let's do our Ride into Spring contest. That's the one where you take that Civic Media app that you've downloaded onto your phone. You have downloaded the Civic Media app to your phone, right? And then call up any one of the radio stations on there, and then look for the little text button where you can text the radio station. And all you got to do is hit that text button and text today's keyword. Actually, it's this hour's keyword because there's different ones 4 times a day. And the keyword for this hour is vacation. You just text the word vacation using the Civic Media app. And there are 4 daily winners, one each contest hour, that will receive an overnight getaway to Chula Vista Resort in Wisconsin Dells. All entrants are entered to win one of the grand prizes. They include everything from a 3-in-1 blender to new bicycles, outdoor patio furniture, all of that and more. All you got to do is be listening at 7 a.m., 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 3 p.m. for your next keyword and your next chance to win. All right, it's time for the weather, which is normally when we bring in Brittany Merlot. Well, actually, we will. And normally we would pass along a comment from Rob in Tigerton. And he does have one here. He says it's 31 with some light rain. We got 7 inches of wet, heavy snow. Brittany was right on the money. He says, I was up at midnight plowing snow. It was really wet, heavy snow, hard to move. But, Rob, we got to take issue because the official weather spotter report for Tigerton was actually 12 inches with 13 nearby in Burnhamwood, 10 here in Chippewa Falls, as well as Eau Claire and Menominee. So Highway 29 and a little bit north, Brittany, we're the ones that got whomped this time.
Yes, finally. I am just happy. I'm so happy. I feel like a little kid at
Stoked.
Christmas.
Finally, you got whopped,
Brittany,
Pat. Yeah!
Brittany, how are you? I'm stoked. People got a foot of snow.
Yes. And Wausau was one of those areas too. Our reports are coming in anywhere from 11 inches to 11.6. That's basically a foot of snowfall. And now everything's going to be changing as we go through the day. In fact, temperatures throughout the state, especially the southern half, already above freezing and continuing to rise. So statewide, we'll all climb above freezing today. And that means as this storm system, the low pressure hasn't even hit us yet. It is still sitting in Nebraska. So as it gets closer, those winds are going to start to increase today. We could see gusts up to 40 miles per hour off of Lake Michigan and rain rolling in. It's going to start off light throughout the afternoon, but as we go into this evening and overnight, we could see accumulations of rain ramping up to nearly a half an inch to an inch throughout tonight and then into tomorrow as well. So the system still has a little bit of kick with it and a little bit of snow as it exits on Tuesday morning and also into Wednesday as well. But right now we're warming up and rain. So it's going to be a slushy, sloppy, nasty mess along Highway 29 and north in the next 24 hours.
Yes, it is. And especially even for those of us who might not necessarily want to attack our driveway and go, it's going to melt, it's going to rain, all that stuff. You get all that extra stuff that the snowplow brings by. and dumps right at the edge of your driveway, which is also where our garbage cans go on Monday mornings here in this neighborhood. And a neighbor just sent me a text a little bit ago. Looks like the plow really got your garbage can good. And I wrote back, I haven't put my trash out yet. So that just tells you somebody down the street from me really got their garbage can whomped. And so we're gonna have a little cleanup to do on 93rd Avenue here, I sense. But we just ride, we roll with it, Brittany. We roll with the seasons.
It was really hard for me too. When I woke up in Kenosha, like I looked out my window, and by the time I walked downstairs to start doing any shoveling, the snow had melted. And I'm just telling you right now, what an inconvenience. So much winter.
Hey, no.
An inconvenience.
Inconvenience.
Like I said, it's time released rain. It's a couple of inches of rain that we really needed, and it's all gonna be absorbed, and before long the grass will be green again.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's
doing.
doing.
I can say that because the baseball season opens today, or opens this week. The Braves on Thursday, so we got that going for us.
That's exciting.
Right. Brittany, thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, at 7:11 right now. I was mentioning and didn't have quite enough time in the history lesson, so I want to talk for just a moment to wish happy birthday to Milwaukee's own Jim Lovell, the astronaut from Apollo 8, the commander of the ill-fated Apollo 13. There it is. Turns 96 today. It's from the soundtrack for Apollo 13. He was the one who uttered the famous line, "Houston, we've had a problem." The landmark movie about the mission was actually based on his memoir about the flight, with Tom Hanks playing Lovell. On Christmas of 1968, going back a few years to Apollo 8, Lovell and two other astronauts took turns reading from Genesis as a worldwide audience watched humans travel to the moon for the very first time. Lovell is the only astronaut to make 2 lunar trips without ever setting foot on the moon. He met his wife Marilyn while they were attending Milwaukee's Juneau High School, when he was enamored with rockets even in high school. Marilyn passed away about 6 months ago after 71 years of marriage. And so we just wanted to again wish happy birthday to Captain Jim Lovell, who turns 96 years old today and has done Wisconsin proud in so many ways. So thank you again for your service. All right, what else do we have here? Coming up, our friends from Motherhood for Good will be talking about school board elections, and they've become rather disruptive affairs, especially since COVID, when disruption seems to be the name of the game for far-right conservatives who, again, when something happens that they don't like, rather than necessarily seeking to change things by running for office or trying to convince the public of their view, will become disruptive. And that's going to happen again this week in another area dealing with the 2020 elections in Manitowoc this Wednesday. And that's because the administrator of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, Megan Wolf, is going to be making an appearance at the Manitowoc Public Library. It's an event sponsored by the Manitowoc Public Library and the League of Women Voters of Manitowoc County. Her presentation is titled, "You Can Trust Wisconsin's Election System." Because you can. Wisconsin elections have been accurate and fair and safe. They always have been, always will be, thanks to more than 1,800 municipal officials who take pride in what they do. But that small but noisy contingent of people who are willing to go along with Donald Trump's plans to, overthrow and overturn an American election have already put out across the internet that they're going to show up and disrupt this event. It's again this Wednesday, 6 p.m. at the Manitowoc Public Library. And a group called the Northeast Wisconsin Patriots has been putting up emails or website posts saying, "We encourage all patriots to attend and resolutely protest Wolf's claim that our election system is secure." Their note goes on to talk about the ways that they want Megan Wolf impeached, not praised, for her maladministration of the state's election. The March 27th meeting gives us an opportunity to insist that she defend herself. Well, no, she's not on trial. She's not on trial, and you're not the prosecution. You're not at all. And I really would double check whether you should be putting the word patriots in your name. if this is what you stand for, is overturning a free and fair election. But I did want it out there, not to cause trouble in Manitowoc. That's what they're looking to do, is cause trouble. And there are people that have already seen this notice. There's people who are already going to be there to attend a presentation about a nationally recognized public official. And, so perhaps at some point, these folks will understand that this kind of disruption is not going to do anything to win over people to their cause, because their cause is rooted in a lie. It's rooted in Donald Trump's big lie. And I would urge them resolutely not to bother with what they think that they're going to be doing on Wednesday. From the text line, we have somebody writing in about HSHS closing the hospitals in Eau Claire and Chippewa Falls. And they say, what did they do with the money that Governor Evers okayed for the hospitals to use a month ago? Thank you for the text. The answer to that is that $15 million is still in limbo because, again, Governor Evers signed a bill to reallocate $15 million for the Chippewa Valley healthcare. The line item vetoes give more flexibility for how the money can be used in the Chippewa Valley rather than just using it for bricks and mortar emergency room type services, which is what the money was initially earmarked for. Well, if you keep it that way, you probably can't put the money to use. But this way, you can find ways to put it to use to keep some healthcare providers, physicians, others in the area as a bit of a transition until things settle down in the marketplace, maybe other players move in. But Republican legislators, again, looking for any excuse to themselves be disruptive when it comes to Governor Evers, have decided that they're not going to release the money now. They claim that, well, now this means the money can be sent out of the Chippewa Valley. It's a slush fund and it can be used anywhere. Look, just because that's what you guys might do with the money doesn't mean that that's what the good people in the Chippewa Valley want to do. They're hurting right now. Their healthcare system has been dealt a body blow. And the last thing that they need right now are Republican legislators, especially from the Chippewa Valley area, much less the rest of the Republican leadership, playing politics with this extremely important issue. Now, the legislature is not coming back into session, but that's not necessary. The Joint Finance Committee can meet and release the funds, and that's exactly what they ought to be doing, is coming to the aid of the Chippewa Valley. Think about if it was in your region instead, whatever your region is, the Fox Valley or the Driftless region, wherever, and give those folks the tools that they need and set the partisan games aside for another day. All right, if you missed it over the weekend, of course, the Badger men's basketball team lost to James Madison on Friday, losing to a 12 seed. Marquette, meanwhile, won its 2 games over the weekend, defeating 10 seed Colorado, 81-77. Next in the Sweet 16, they will play 11 seed North Carolina State. The Badger women's hockey team fell short in the title game, 1-0 to Ohio State. The Badger men's hockey team, their NCAA tournament action opens this Friday afternoon in Providence, Rhode Island against Quinnipiac. And the Bucks won yesterday against Oklahoma City. They will play the Lakers at home tomorrow night. Selena Heller's coming up next, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Monday morning. If you're here, you're up north, live from Lake Wisconsin. Media Radio. We're back now on Up North News, 7:20 on this Monday morning, and we're joined by Up North News reporter Selena Heller, who joins us weekly to talk about some of the stories that she'll be working on or have been working on for the past week or so. Selena, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. We're going to start by talking about National Agriculture Day, which was last week. And if people are going, wait, I thought we did this in October. That was National Farmer Day, right?
Different. Yes.
Totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah. Now, okay, not totally different, but one's for the farmer and agriculture is for like everybody, right?
Well, yeah, you have to include the haulers and processors and any job related to farming. I have let's see, 1 in 9 jobs in the state are part of this industry. So it's big.
Wow.
And Wisconsin agriculture contributes $104 billion to the state's economy every year.
$104 billion.
Billion dollars. So
Yeah,
we're very much in the game here in Wisconsin.
Right. And so, back in is so much more. And yet it also includes, those farm families. And I know that there's sometimes a tradition in some rural school districts. I don't know that it always happens on National Ag Day, but,
Right.
the parking lots look a little different in the high schools in some places.
Well, right. In my hometown of Black River Falls, there were a lot of tractors in the parking lot at the high school because it was take your tractor to work day to work.
Take your
not
tractor to
school.
work day.
Take your
I
tractor
like
to
that.
school day. I think we should take tractors to work too.
Hey, what if,
Don't you?
there's days when I could just hop on my little John Deere mower and just get, take a few minutes and just get some peacefulness. Nobody's ringing up my phone. I'm not answering any emails. It's just me on my little lawn tractor. So why wouldn't a farmer feel the same way? But I've seen that before where, they get like one day a year where they get the okay to take the tractor in, which this time of year is perfect because they haven't started planting yet or anything like
Right.
that.
Well, yeah, they
So,
don't need them. And
yeah.
they drove them in the mornings, and some left them there for the whole day and then drove them at the end of the school. They drove them home, and then some left at lunch and brought them home then, and then drove the car back. And I called the secretary at the school, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we got tractors here today."
I think that's great. I really do. And, again, anything that lets you show off a little pride and lets you kind of, let your hair down a little bit and not have to drive the same old, beat up used car that most 16-year-olds get, if you get a chance to use the tractor, hey, all the better.
Well,
I'd
for
like
sure.
that.
But I don't know. There's a lot of nice cars in the high school parking lots these days.
Yeah, I'll bet you there's not a 73 Plymouth Fury in there like there was what was your first car?
Plymouth Reliant, a little black one.
Wow, the Reliant. Kicking
Reliant.
it old school. Good for you. How
Yeah.
many miles did that have when it finally pooped out?
Gosh, not too many because my parents were under, now you can just drive cars forever and ever and it doesn't matter, the mileage as much, but they were like, if it has 80,000 miles on it, then you get a different one because that's too many. So they're kind of just old school, like that's a lot.
That's okay.
So
Well, you still got good trading value, so I suppose that's a very good thing. So, all right, good job, folks. All right, another story that you've been working on, a much more serious note, and it's all because of that Alabama Supreme Court decision that really has a lot of people worried about the future of in vitro fertilization. And again, Alabama's a long way from Wisconsin, but the ripple effects are being felt all across the nation for parent people who want to be parents, doctors, providers, all kinds of folks are still really feeling this, aren't they?
Well, right. And the doctor I talked to, she's the founder, and she's been practicing there for 26 years in fertility. She's the founder of the Wisconsin Fertility Institute in Middleton. And she said the phone has been ringing off the hook. People have been worried. She's been concerned, like, is this going to spread? Are other states going to be involved in all of this? Is Wisconsin going to be? So they're taking measures with embryos right now. And it's just they're kind of up in a frenzy about what is going to happen too, what this all means for the future.
That's very unfortunate because there are many embryos really throughout the United States, throughout the world, that should not be transferred, that may carry genetic abnormalities that, there are maybe families that don't want to transfer these embryos. And we worry that if these laws take effect really elsewhere, including in Wisconsin, that some of these families are going to be forced to carry these embryos or make decisions about these embryos that they don't want to be forced to make.
So Dr. Pritz also was talking to me about those embryos that the families have in their offices, and you don't think about the extra cost this would incur also, because she talked about storage fees, and in vitro fertilization is already an exorbitant amount of money, but there will be extra fees incurred if you have to store the embryos, there's people involved and there's equipment involved. And so it's just increasing all these amounts, just money wise, even that you wouldn't think of.
Right. Because again, look what you're talking about. You're talking about frozen storage. Does that really sound like a definition of people to you? It's not. And that's what's making this so complicated for people. And you talked to a mom about the value of in vitro fertilization and what life would be like if that were not available to her.
Right. This mom, Rachel Hahn in Elk Mound, she wouldn't have a family if it weren't for fertility treatments, medical intervention, and IVF. She had a first son with fertility treatments. And then, this was a years-long process, of course, but then 2 daughters because of IVF.
First of all, it's definitely created a sense of empathy for what a lot of families are going through, struggling to create their family. We don't always know, looking in from the outside, the struggles that they have. It's a very private thing for a lot of people. We were lucky to have a great support system. We were lucky to be able to pursue an option like IVF. Had we not, we wouldn't have the children that we have. And they are our world, and we are so grateful for them. And they have been such a blessing that, like I said, otherwise, had we not done IVF, we wouldn't have them.
So Rachel Hahn, she was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome or ovary syndrome. And so a lot of infertile women have this syndrome. And so IVF is sometimes the only option. And for this family, it was successful. And of course, like she said, she wouldn't have the beautiful children that she does today. So very
again,
important.
it is a very critical and a very personal health matter to families who were not looking to have this politicized. And yet here we are, because we have to again point out that while there are, from Donald Trump on down, there are Republicans who are saying, oh, but we support IVF, but they've also signed on to pieces of legislation that would bestow personhood upon an embryo. And that leads to all of these complications. I'm sure these folks that you're talking to didn't want politics involved and really don't know who they can trust.
Well, right. The doctor said exactly that. She said, this is no place for politics. This is between the doctor here and families. This is no place. We don't want that. That's not where that belongs.
All right. Selena Heller has that story and more. You can catch it over at UpNorthNewsWI.com or on our social media feeds, where you can see the full video report of what she puts together. All right, Selena, have a great day. Talk to you next week.
Thank you. You too.
And our friends from Motherhood for Good talking about the importance of next week's school board elections right after this. You're up north.
In my hand now, and wondering what dress to wear.
morning, Danielle.
Morning, Pat. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Nice to have you back.
Good to be here.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I've got the notes for the email, and any other new info I should know here? Or any websites that we need to point people toward? Or just the usual motherhood one?
Yeah, I think just the usual.
Yeah. We can do that.
Yeah. Just looking to see if there's anything specific in this. Pat, I'm not sure if I've ever forwarded this to you, but it's kind of like a summary of boards that have been flipped and comments from parents. Not for today, but just for future reference, because I know you were looking into similar stuff at some point. So
yes,
I'm just going to send this your way.
Great.
While we're sitting here.
Okay. Yep, we've got just over 2 minutes, and then we'll be back.
All right.
Do you have any spring break plans, Sarah?
No, I'm my kid is 17, so he's working most of the break. So I'll be working. Yeah. Nothing too exciting. How about you?
We're heading to California to Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, I'll be knocking doors.
Nice.
That's what I do.
Yeah, which is made a little tougher with it being Easter weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I won't do it probably on the weekend, but I'll do it during the week.
Who am I hearing in the background?
Did you hear that?
What was it?
It sounded like a dog or something.
No, it's my son shrieking.
Oh.
That's
I'm
why I
sorry.
put these on. No, it's okay. He's 20 months old, so
it's very distant. So it's not
okay. That's why I'm trying to. My headphones have been being weird all morning, so that's why I was trying to wear them to. It says connected, so.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
All right.
All right, it's time for Motherhood Monday. Our friends from Motherhood for Good join us in just a sec. First, a reminder, you can get our daily newsletter over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. In there is my article on how the state Supreme Court's new progressive majority is reforming how the court does business after 15 years of conservative control. Also, some of Wisconsin's favorite Easter candies that you'll be purchasing this week. And on social media, the Affordable Care Act celebrated its 14th anniversary on Saturday. Read about the ways it has been improving lives over these past 14 years. And we'll talk about brewers, not the baseball team, but the actual people making beer and looking for more locally sourced ingredients for their craft beers. Just head over to our Facebook page for that. All right, on this Motherhood Monday, we have some big elections coming up in Wisconsin a week from tomorrow. So get yourself registered. If you don't know if you're registered or don't know where to go, head over to myvote.wi.gov. And along with 2 statewide constitutional amendments, which probably should be voted no because they're just monkey business. There's also reason to vote yes for a whole lot of school referendums around the area. But then there's school board elections. and they're not what they used to be. And Danielle Scampini-Lynn joins us along with Sarah Harrison from the Brookfield area to talk a bit about that. Danielle, Sarah, good morning to you.
Morning, Pat.
Good morning.
So I don't know how else to put this other than to say the school board elections have become much more political, almost partisan, certainly very expensive. A lot of outside groups come in. Like it or not, Danielle, this is kind of where we are these days.
I mean, yeah, it cannot be overstated how different it is than when I was a kid. I am in the Elmbrook School District, which you might know is the #1 school district in the state. It also happens to be one that is being targeted for kind of flipping to a very political partisan board after, decades of being, run by nonpartisan in a very mixed politically minded district. Kind of the school board has been kind of like hands off until very recently. And, it's kind of like all eyes on Elmbrook in the area right now, which is, something that is very concerning to say the least.
So what is it that we're seeing in these others when we hear that, a local school district has had a conservative takeover? What are the kinds of things that have happened or, were in the works to happen? In other words, people go, what's the big deal? Danielle, what is the big deal?
I actually am going to let Sarah answer that one as a parent of kids who were in a district when a district was flipped and are still, I think one of your kids is still a student. So can you speak to how, like what you've seen, just firsthand experience of how things have changed in your district?
Absolutely. So my kids go to school in the Waukesha School District, and my oldest has graduated, and what we've seen in the last couple of years, we've seen a parental rights a statement that is almost word for word from Moms for Liberty. We've seen books being either banned or moved up to higher level reading areas. We've seen removal of signage from our school deemed as political, and that included safe space signs from our classrooms. We've seen a lot of what I would call culture wars happening in our schools.
And this, again, when we talk about the things that are being taken down, the great irony of all of this is that the things that are meant to say that this is a safe space and that we are an inclusive community, conservatives are claiming that that's divisive, that it's dividing a community, which is logic I can't really explain. But Sarah, maybe because you've seen some of it firsthand, if you were going to describe, what the tone is that justifies this, I mean, does it make sense?
No, it's not logical to me. What they're trying to say is that that's, of course, it's a safe space because every space is safe, and of course, kids are welcome of all different stripes because all people are welcome. It's a very all lives matter kind of vibe that you get when you talk to these folks.
Yeah, because again, and it doesn't make us the bad guys for saying this, Danielle, but this thought of the universally benevolent parents, but much like benevolent employers. Yeah, there's some very good ones out there, but there are kids whose parents are not doing right by them, and frankly, school is the safer space, whether it's for talking, for learning, just for existing, for eating. Danielle.
Yes, yeah, and that's so true. And it's, there has to be a balance, right? There has to be a balance of course, they're your kids and you have the say on how they are raised, but also they are a member of our community. And it is up to teachers and administrators and other members of the community to make sure that kids are being cared for, are being able to be themselves. And just think about how much development goes into a person's personality, who they're going to be at these stages of life. And if we're saying like, well, everyone is welcome, so we can't talk about anything that's different about anyone because it's going to make someone else feel less welcome, it doesn't make sense. So really all it's going to do is lead to kids feeling like, well, if I'm not supposed to talk about the way that I am because it might make someone else uncomfortable, how does that also mean that I'm welcome just as much as everybody else? It truly just, the logic does not make sense.
And when you talk about development, I mean, I just think of curriculum such as, a healthy human growth and development, AKA sex education curriculum that at one point in Wisconsin, required factual, age-appropriate information. Scott Walker and the Republicans came in and said, nope, you guys don't have to teach sex ed. And if you do, it has to be an abstinence-only, foundation to it. That, Sarah, that's not doing right by anybody, especially, again, people who are wrestling with questions about, about sexuality, about gender, about, the way the world works, and a place of education that has professionals giving age-appropriate education has never struck me as a bad thing.
Well, I agree completely. And one of the things that really drove me to get more involved with the school board, and I actually ran for Waukesha School Board a couple of years back, was that at the time, my 13-year-old stood up in front of the school board in this intimidating environment and said, you are hurting me as a queer student, and what are you going to do about it? And they didn't do a darn thing about it. So I needed to help advocate for the kids that didn't have a home that they could go to and to have those conversations.
So when you talk about being an advocate, and obviously there's now the school board races are much more involved, much more expensive. I'm sure, Danielle, that folks in Elmbrook are being bombarded by a group called WIS Red and probably others. Can you talk a bit about what this WIS Red is and what it is, what kind of tactics they're using in Elmbrook and elsewhere?
Yeah, so WIS Red is very directly tied to the Waukesha County Republican Party. But more than that, it is not, what you would say is like your father's Republican Party, as we've seen a lot in the last decade plus. Very, very far right, very conservative agendas, and they try to kind of paint over it with, oh, well, this is just just your conservative values at work, and the candidates try to kind of distance themselves, but they're on WIS Red mailers that we're seeing coming out that say, support your conservative values, vote for these candidates, and they also tend to not really be super involved members of the existing school communities, which just feels kind of like a bit of a red flag, right? Like, why is this candidate who is being so heavily supported by this group, who is not really a very involved member of our community, why do they want to be involved with a school board that they don't have a lot of, personal ties to? They might live in the district, and they might even, send kids to the district, but if they don't take an active role, why is this the role that they're going after? It feels a little concerning to me.
Well, and it's something we've talked about in the past with Tim Nordine, the president of the Eau Claire School Board, and others who said it really should be a red flag that if somebody is campaigning as kind of a single issue candidate, like taxes, instead of what our kids are learning, or the, conservative values, what they may lack is the intellectual curiosity to want to look at the whole well-being of the education of our children, Sarah, and single issue candidates are not, like you said, you're not going to do right by the kids if you're not wondering about all the rest of the district, except, making sure that you can ban books.
Right. Agree completely. Well, and we're finding in Waukesha now that we are at a position where we have 8 of our 9 school board members were WIS Red type folks. And yeah. So we're trying really hard to get folks back on the board. We have one person, Diane Voigt, who is on the board, who was a former board member. We got her back on the board last year, and this year we have Stephanie Fidlin and we have Angelique Byrne who are running, and we're recommending vote only for 2, even though you can vote for 3. Please don't vote for any of the WIS Red folks, because they're just pushing an agenda. That's all that's happening.
And by the way, we should note that, school board elections traditionally are individual matters. Like an individual says, I'd like to step up and serve on my school board and vote for me. And the other one says, vote for me. But now we have these tickets, these blocks, these groups. And because they're not clearly identified as, Republican or Democratic, it is tougher. Voters in these school districts, literally have to do some homework and not just guess at who's the best person on the board. Sarah, is a lot of this being done through like lawn signs? Are there a lot of mailers? I know in some districts they were seeing like bombards of radio ads, which again, most school board candidates can't afford, but outside money can afford.
Right. Where's that money coming from, Pat, to afford?
Right.
We all know that's not cheap.
Again, that should be a red flag there as well. So, let's talk about what people can do then. And Danielle, of course, obviously, at Motherhood for Good, you guys are rooted in getting information out to people. So what is your recommendation for people hearing this in their school districts? They already sense that there's maybe a concerning candidate or a candidate they really want to support. You still got 8 days till the election. What are the kinds of things people can do in their own networks?
That's a great question, Pat. And the thing with local elections is that they are just that. They are local. And that's who you should be talking to. Talk to community members that you trust, who either are like-minded or share values, and say, hey, I am not totally tuned in on this election, which is totally fine to be. Don't be embarrassed that you don't really know where to begin, and ask someone if they have any resources, if they have information. It's great to go to a candidate's website. If you can find a candidate out trying to introduce themselves to the community, that's also a really great way to meet them and ask them questions directly. Like you said, we have 8 days. You can early vote all this week, depending on your area. We definitely recommend early absentee voting, especially if you're heading out of town for spring break this week. But before you do that, just send a couple texts to friends if you aren't sure, to get some questions answered. And if you do feel really confident, be proactive and reach out to those friends, because they might be feeling like, I'm just not sure. Maybe I'll just sit this election out, but in a local election, that is where the difference is made. I think it was a matter of a handful of votes in the last round of the Elmbrook elections to determine those school board races. It really, really matters to be tuned into these local elections.
It really is the power of the individual and people that will stand up and step up. And Sarah, I know we talked to you a couple of weeks back about how when this is all done, you'll turn your attention to an assembly race. And again, wouldn't happen without people stepping up. But I got to ask, in the couple seconds left, Danielle, that sweatshirt, is that a Motherhood for Good sweatshirt? And does it really say Mother Voter on the front of it?
Mother Voter, it, Pat. If you go to motherhoodforgood.com, there's a merch link, and we've got some really great stuff up there, including one that says support local elections, which is a new favorite sweatshirt. Just a little shameless plug for our stuff. Awesome. But yes, be a mother voter and be an advocate for your community.
Danielle Scampini, Lynn, Sarah Harrison. Thanks so much, ladies. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Terry Bell's next. You're up north. And there we go. We're clear. Wow, that goes fast. All right.
So fast, especially when we've got so much to say.
I know. Well, and now I've got merch to buy. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Pat, is there a way to specifically shout out the Elmbrook candidates that Motherhood for Good is supporting in like Facebook or something? I meant to do that at the end, but if anyone here is listening, it's Mary Wacker and Jean Lambert are the candidates that we are supporting for Elmbrook School District.
There you go. And that'll get out to all those folks that way too. Yep. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat.
All right. Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Hey, hello, Terry.
How are you?
Good. Good.
Am I good? Okay. Excellent.
You are good. Yes, you are.
Okay.
Time to kick off another week, and a great way to do that is with Civic Media News Director Terry Bell to give you 3 things you need to know to get the week started off right and be on top of the news headlines. Terry, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. I'm excellent. I had a very nice weekend. How was yours?
Well, it was fine. In about 10 minutes, it's going to be a little less fine as I go try to move 10 inches of snow off the driveway.
You guys got socked pretty badly. Or you could just wait for it to melt.
Well, I was going to say, I'm not going to do it all. I'm just going to do the part that's definitely more than 10 inches is where the snowplow came and did its business. So we're going to take care of at least some of it here. So, all right, looking at what is coming up throughout the week here, there was in international news, there was quite an event in Russia and, people pointing blame this way and that way. What can you tell us about this terrorist attack?
Well, what we know now is 137 people are dead, 4 people arrested.
And this is in Moscow?
In Moscow, sorry. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. At a rock concert, 4 people who had come from the border with Ukraine. They're members of something called ISIS-K. Which is a terrorist group that emerged back in 2014 or so in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. Its leaders had broken away from Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and declared loyalty to even the more violent extremist Islamic State, known as ISIS, of course, which was gaining influence at the time. So exactly what point they thought they were making or cause they were for is baffling to imagine right now. But yeah, it's just awful. 137 people dead that we know of.
Right. And again, people saying, well, wanting to right away point it at Ukraine and say, Ukraine did this, and it may not be the case. It may be this other terror cell that is looking to take, shall we say, advantage of a situation. But unfortunately, if Russia retaliates, it's probably the Ukrainian people that are going to pay the price for that. So it's just one of those things that we have to follow. I think many more people here in the States are following what's going to happen with the former president and his need to post a bond and whether he's going to be able to write out a very fat check today.
Yeah, so he was found culpable in civilian court, in civil court, I should say, with his businesses defrauding a number of people. So he needs to pay $454 million at some point today in order to stay in compliance with the law. It's been playing out in news reports and on social media for weeks now, whether or not he has the money. His lawyers say he doesn't. The president on his own, former president, I should say, on his own social media channel insists that he does. So we'll see exactly what happens today with that.
Well, he just is all the time sending these, mixed signals. He's got, Eric Trump was on TV yesterday saying it is physically impossible to have a bond that big. Physically impossible, as if it's something that you lift. When there are very large bonds, and it doesn't have to come from one source. Although, like I said earlier in the show, I'm a little concerned that one of those sources may be a billionaire, associated with TikTok, and I don't know that foreign money should really be involved in, raising a bond for somebody with who's suspected of trying to overturn an election. This is going to get messy. This is going to get
and
messy.
might be president again in a few months. And what kind of leverage such an individual would have over the president of the United States.
Right. So a point I've been making since he first came on the scene is we don't know his foreign debts. He's never been upfront about that. We don't know who who his actions are really intended to help. And then finally, let's get even closer to home here and talk about the Wisconsin Policy Forum, a nonpartisan research group that does all kinds of various issues. And they are this time around taking on the housing. I think it's fair to say a housing crisis, both in supply and affordability, not just in Wisconsin, but all across the country. But what do their Wisconsin numbers indicate?
Well, it seems that home prices in Wisconsin are growing faster than incomes are, which is creating a problem, one, for affordability, and two, the whole market is just suffering from a lack of inventory. And it's tough to do much about that at this point. It's very expensive to build right now, and developers are concerned about getting their investment back. interest rates are a bit higher than they were when a lot of people took out the mortgages they have now, and they might be considering, you'd think normally, and I'll just use an anecdotal example, you'd think that this would be a good time in the seller's market to, cash out and take the money and run, but you still need a place to live. Right. And you'll likely be ending up paying a higher interest rate than you're paying now. So for a lot of people, it just makes sense to stay put, which exacerbates the problem of, people wanting to get into the market. But one, there just isn't inventory. And two, it's just not affordable due to interest and prices.
And when you look at things that could be done at the government level to try to encourage things, there's talk about, tax credits that will help make homes more affordable, especially first-time homes more affordable. But like you just said, if they can't find something, then what good is that tax credit? That's why I was very intrigued for the State of the Union that President Biden mentioned a tax credit as well for people who put their starter homes up for sale, who are ready to move to, upgrade their housing. And maybe they too are thinking, well, but it's really expensive. But if you give them a tax credit, then maybe you kind of move the chain along. And I'm sure there's other ideas too, but this is going to take a little creativity to break this bottleneck.
It would seem to. Another problem, I live in Madison, where the problem here is, according to research, that older people, empty nesters, are not downsizing at the rates that they used to, and that's keeping first-time home buyers out of the market too. There isn't that turnover that we've seen for generations.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we had this marketplace that essentially had no mid-level housing. It was either McMansions, or very high density, townhouse developments and things like that. And we're really paying a price for that. So again, whether it's at the federal level or at the state level, I know Governor Evers has talked about it. There's been bipartisan attention to the housing issue in the legislature, but clearly, based on this Wisconsin Policy Forum report, there's more work that needs to be done. Civic Media News Director Terry Bell will be following all of this and more throughout the course of the week. Terry, thanks so much.
Thank you, Pat.
Have yourself a great day. Greg, you get a whole hour to nap, I believe. Then you got to get ready for
2 hours.
Yeah, then it's time for Matinee on Air. And so catch Greg there as well. And he'll be back here at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning when we do this all over again for Up North News. Up North News is the Wisconsin digital outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network building a more informed, engaged, and representative America. We've got a great guest coming up all throughout the next few days here. Kristen Lyerly will be back tomorrow to talk about the U.S. Supreme Court and the arguments they're hearing tomorrow about medication abortion, and her Women Win Wisconsin segment Thursday at 7:30. Have a great Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.